So this chapter, we're focusing on solids. And so here we're going to look at the different types of crystalline solids. So this flow chart here gives us an overview of crystalline solids. So we can divide crystalline solids into molecular, ionic, and atomic solids, dividing them into those categories based on what are the individual particles. In a molecular solid, the individual particles are molecules. These solids are held together by intermolecular forces, which are fairly weak, and so these compounds tend to have low melting points. An example is ice. If the individual particles are ions, we call it an ionic solid. So here we have formula units, cations and anions, making up the solid. These are held together by ionic bonds in all directions, and so they hold together very tightly. They're going to have high melting points. An example would be table salt. Then you can have atomic solids. Here, the individual units are just single atoms. So these are going to be elements, right? And we can divide these based on what is holding those atoms together. We can have non-bonding solids where the atoms are just held together by dispersion forces. Everything has dispersion forces, including atoms, but atoms do not have dipole-dipole forces or hydrogen bonding because they're spherical. They can't have dipoles. They can only have those temporary dipoles in the dispersion forces. So because these are held together by very, very weak forces, their boiling point, their melting points are very, very low. In fact, the only examples of non-bonding atomic solids are the noble gases. And those are all gases at room temperature. You can freeze them, but you have to get them super, super cold. We can have metallic solids. So here you have metal atoms. So any pure metal is a metallic solid. And these are held together by metallic bonds. These have variable melting points. Some metals melt at extremely high temperatures. Others, like mercury, melt at temperatures below room temperature. And then we can have network covalent solids. So here the individual pieces are atoms, but they're held together by covalent bonds. They're not molecular solids, because here we have discrete molecules. Here, these atoms, you could think of the solid as one giant molecule because the covalent bonds go all throughout the piece of solid. These have very high melting points because the particles hold together very tightly. An example would be quartz, which is silicon dioxide. So we divide into three groups of crystalline solids based on what the particles are, and then we divide atomic solids based on what's holding the atoms together. So that's the big picture. And these slides go over lots of little details, so I'm going to go through them pretty quickly because I already said most of this. Molecular solids, we've got molecules in here, things like water, carbon dioxide as solids. These have low melting points. There's a couple of other examples. Molecular solids can have different crystal structures. These are called polymorphs, many shapes. Different polymorphs may have different melting points and solubilities because the packing efficiency, the coordination number is different, and so they behave slightly different. This is important in pharmaceuticals because different polymorphs can have different physiological activities. So one polymorph of a drug may have one effect on you, and another polymorph may have no effect or a negative effect. And so exactly how those particles are arranged can be important. This is an interesting example with chocolate. Most people like chocolate. So here we have a photograph of two pieces of chocolate. This is nice dark chocolate, and this chocolate looks kind of weird, right? It's got this white stuff on it. That's called bloom, okay? And you'll get that in lower quality chocolate, especially stuff that's been sitting around, maybe not stored properly. Making chocolate candy there's actually a lot of art to it as well as science. It's not a simple matter because there are 6 different crystalline polymorphs of cocoa butter. And they have different melting points, they have different characteristics in terms of density and stability. And so here in the blue, polymorph 5 is the one that's most desirable, melts at 33.8 degrees Celsius. It's firm, it snaps nicely, smooth and shiny, it melts in your mouth. It's the most desirable of the chocolates. These tend to be soft and crumbly. They're going to melt in your hand, not in your mouth, because their melting points are lower. So, these, the 17, that's below room temperature, right? So it's not going to be a good quality chocolate. And then if you get up here where the melting point's harder, then you're going to get blooming again. And this is what happens. This takes several months to form. This is what happens when this polymorph 5 is sort of over a long period of time will naturally change. So that's kind of interesting. Ionic solids, we've got the units are ions held together by ionic bonds, high melting points. We're going to talk more about those in a later section. Non-bonding atomic solids. So these are atoms held together by weak dispersion forces. They are going to go into closest packed structures. Could be hexagonal, could be cubic, closest packed, to maximize the coordination number, minimize the distance. They're going to have really low melting points. The melting points will increase with molar mass because larger atoms have stronger dispersion forces. The only examples are the noble gases in their solid form. Metallic solids, metal atoms held together by metallic bonds. And these also form closest packed structures. The melting points vary because the strength of the bonds varies. And so earlier we talked about the electron C model for metallic bonding. So here you have individual metal atoms and their valence electrons are held quite loosely. And so they let the valence electrons go out to play in the neighborhood. And so these electrons are moving around. The metal is held together by the attraction between the nuclei and those electrons that are being shared. This explains why metals conduct electricity, because these electrons are free to move. That's also why they conduct heat. It's why they're malleable and ductile, because you hit a piece of metal and it's just going to dent instead of shatter, because these bonds are non-directional. And so if you shift some of them a little bit, it's fine. It'll just move over and be okay. And then there are network covalent atomic solids. These are really interesting things. So examples are diamonds, graphite, and silicon dioxide. So the crystal structures here are going to be limited by the geometry of the covalent bonds. So we're not going to form closest packed crystal structures because you have covalent bonds. So if you think about a carbon atoms tend to form 4 bonds, right? And those 4 bonds would be aligned in the shape of a tetrahedron. So the angles are going to be 109.5. You can't have a closest packed structure then. But these are going to have very high melting points because covalent bonds are much stronger than intermolecular forces. So we should be able to look at the formula of something and identify what kind of a solid is this. So what type of atomic solid is AU? Metallic. So it's metallic. It's a metallic atomic solid. These questions really should be easy. So, what kind of an element is it? It's a metal. Bingo! Metallic solid, right? We also ask questions like this: which solid would you expect to have the highest melting point? So before we look at the compounds or the substances, what affects the melting point? The bonds, the forces that are holding the particles together, right? So the stronger those forces are, the higher the melting point. So in these different types of solids, we've got dispersion forces, and we've got dipole forces, dipole forces. We've got covalent bonds. We've got ionic bonds. And we've got metallic bonds. So let's look at these three different things and identify what's holding them together. What kind of a compound is MgO? It's ionic, right? It's a metal and a nonmetal. Those form ions, and so this is an ionic solid held together by ionic bonds. What kind of a substance is this? Well, is it? It's not ionic, right? Are those atoms or molecules? It's molecules, right? So I2 molecules, right? So this is going to be a molecular solid. And this molecular solid is held together by what type of intermolecular force? Is this polar or nonpolar?
It's nonpolar.
It's nonpolar.
Sharing equal electrons.
Yeah, so it's symmetrical, doesn't have a permanent dipole, so this is held together by dispersion forces. The weakest kind of intermolecular force. This ionic solid is held together by ionic bonds. And this guy, krypton. Is it a metal or a nonmetal? It's a nonmetal. So it's not metallic. Is it atomic or molecular? It's just atomic. This was molecular. This is an element that's molecular. This is an element that's atomic. Because the formula is just Kr. It doesn't form molecules. It's just individual atoms. So this is an atomic solid. And what's holding those atoms together? The only force of attraction between atoms is dispersion forces. Remember, we looked at an illustration of an atom. There's the nucleus, and it had 2 electrons, and those 2 electrons, they could happen to both be on one side of the nucleus at a given instant, which would make this side partially negative and this side partially positive. That attracts or repels the electrons in the neighboring atom, setting up an instantaneous temporary dipole. You get a little bit of attraction and then it goes away. Those are dispersion forces. They come and they go. They're very, very weak, right? So we looked at these 3 substances and identified what kinds of solids they were and what was holding them together. Which of these forces is the strongest? The ionic bonds. So we would expect magnesium oxide to have the highest melting point. Does that make sense?